ReefDudes is sponsored by Brightwell Aquatics and Bulk Reef Supply.
Today we're talking Reefer Tools. What's going on, guys? Devin from ReefDudes. So yesterday I was talking to the wife and I was like, hey, what should I do a video on this weekend? And she's like, fishy stuff. I'm like, thanks, tips. And then what she actually meant was all the stuff I use for my fishy stuff, aka all the Reefer Tools. So it's kind of today's topic of the video. So just some stuff that I find useful to have around the house and that I often use on the tank. Now there's lots of stuff that you might think of and some probably not so much. Starting out, one of the most obvious ones most people should have is a turkey baster. If you are dipping your corals, you can use it to like dislodge any pests. If there's any cyan or funkiness on your tank, you can use that to spray it off. Same thing, detritus build up on the rocks. So I do go over the tank once in a while, but for the most part I actually use the little Neptune P-Mump just with the little power adapter. So I plug that in and it's just like a little jet stream, and I'll use that to clean all the detritus and all the stuff that settles off all my rocks once in a while. Now next couple things is funnels. I'm not sure how many of you guys actually use funnels, but you don't want to spill stuff, you don't want to spill your expensive additives, or same thing, getting a wide mouth funnel is huge for doing something like filling up a kelp reactor or refilling a DI cartridge. It's a pain if that stuff gets everywhere, so definitely super duper handy. Another big one I like to have is a strainer. I'm not really a fan of using fish nets because sometimes the fish's little gills or little spikes can get caught in the net. And I always feel bad, I don't like doing it, so I use a big wide mouth strainer, and you can kind of catch them, let it drain out, and move them, and I feel like it's more gentler on the fish. Another couple of really useful things is, so I've been trying to keep my hands out of the tank more and more and more. So using some of these little plastic tongs, these work really well. There's no moving parts. If something falls over, I can reach in there and just kind of reposition it without actually sticking my hand into the tank, and that goes a long way. Now on the frag tank, I got these Max Spec carbon fiber tweezers. These are super cool, no metal, nothing gonna rust. They're super lightweight, and these little rubber things on the end were really grippy, so they're awesome for doing frags. So super cool. Really impressed with those so far. Acrylic rods is good for pointing at stuff. They're like your little reefer glow stick in the tank, and you just gotta nudge something over, so those are useful. Now another big one, everyone has a glass cleaner on their tank, but sometimes there's those spots where you just don't fully get it 100% clean. Now for that, I bought this guy off Amazon for like 20 bucks or whatever. It was pretty cheap, but it's a stainless steel extension bowl, and it uses shaving razors. So I normally just buy, some bulk packs, these little Astra razor blades. And if it gets rusty, a little chip, it's super cheap to just replace the blade. But you can get in there and you can scrape, right down to the edge of the sand bed. You can get rid of those little edges, all those spots where sometimes it doesn't get 100% with your magnet cleaner, and it just makes your tank look like that brand new, pristine look again. So, probably every few weeks, once a month, I'll go around my tank and I'll give it a really good cleaning with all those little spots with a good razor blade. Now, a big important thing too when you are scraping, having that little bit of an angle and having the force against it is what's going to clean that film off your glass. That sometimes, if your magnet cleaner is not powerful enough, it may kind of gloss over it and not fully get it off. So it kind of gives you like a deeper level of clean to really bring that high clarity back. Now if you're fragging, obviously you want to have some coral fraggers. It is good to have some different sizes of it. When you're using these, always a good idea to rinse them off in RODI water afterwards, just so they don't rust. Another big thing I see all the time is people will post photos of something and they'll ask for an ID on it, and it's just blue, which is so hard to ID things you can't see the proper colors. Getting a coral lens goes a long way. So I have multiples of these. I have like the orangey ones, the yellow ones, polyp lab ones, corals one. Now if you don't have one of these, you can still use basically anything orange or yellow. It shows they give out these safety glasses, so you can use these guys. Just hold your phone behind it, snap a photo. Go to your hardware store, pick up some yellow safety glasses, right? Anything yellow or orange is gonna cut out that blue and let you take really nice photos. Now, if you have adjustable LEDs, you could also just whiten up your lights, tone down the blues. There's the free option, or a super cheap way of doing it. Now, another couple things when you are dosing something to your tank, it's like, oh, you need like 4.5 grams. How are you gonna measure that? I use a little jeweler's scale, so super tiny little guy. You just put this on top and you can measure 0.1 of a gram or less, so super duper handy. And for like chemi cleaners, there's certain things where you got to dose very small amounts, and this thing comes in really handy for that. I also have a bigger, just digital kitchen scale that I'll use for mixing up stuff like alkalinity or calcium and magnesium, that type of stuff. Now on that note, beakers. Beakers, super duper handy if I'm mixing large stuff like dosing or alkatronic reagent. I'll use a big beaker, so this one does 1800 mils, so 1.8 liters. So you can mix up larger volumes at once, and I got smaller ones. I have an even smaller one that you can use for mixing up dosing or corrections and different things. So super duper handy. You don't really want to be using your kitchen stuff, keep the spills happy, get your own little set of lab beakers. Super duper handy. Now when mounting corals or fragging, glue is your friend. If I'm doing bigger stuff, I prefer to use the Ecotech glue just because it's very, very thick. If I'm doing one-off stuff, I tend to really like the Polyp Lab. They make these grenades. They give you a whole slew of little ones. Now one thing, if you're gluing stuff underwater, that nozzle gets buggered up, so it's nice to have these little kind of single-use or multi-use ones. So they each have their own kind of place. So I do appreciate having like the nice big thick bottle for if I'm doing a bunch of fragging or I'm mounting bigger stuff, and little one-off stuff, I really like having the grenade for that. Now, speaking of dosing, this thing's super cool. It uses quite a bit, especially if you are doing titration testing. If you're trying to pull it exactly 5 mils or 8 mils or something, there's a good chance you're a little bit off. This thing is adjustable. So there's a little dial, and I can say, okay, how many mils do I want to dose? And it sets the plunger at that. So it's adjustable pipette. So I push it down, you can kind of feel, you can push it past it, but you feel the first stopper, and that's what you set it to. So you can dose, exactly, 7.8 mils or 7.6. So super duper cool. If you do a lot of test kitting or titration testing, I would definitely advise going that route because it's going to keep things consistent rather than you potentially messing it up. Now on top of that, with this, how do you clean your test kits? Most of these I just rinse out with RODI water. Every once in a while I will put them in an ultrasonic cleaner to clean them very well. And then you need some way to dry it. This thing, super duper cool, fairly inexpensive off Amazon. I think it's called like Boomgrass or something. It's for like baby bottles, I think it was targeted, but perfect way to hold all your test kits. They're not gonna fall out, and it's a great little drying rack. So yeah, super cool one. Next on the list, useful things, refractor meters, or this one specifically, the digital one. Love this, instant result of numbers. Super duper handy. Refractor meters, you can drop it, you can bump it, and get out of calibration. So this is pretty much my go-to now, is using the Hana digital one. Now there is times where you're out of reagent or you don't trust it, you want to second guess it, and that's where I think this guy is super duper cool. This is from Tropic Marin, and this is a hydrometer. So this guy, it never needs calibration, it's always going to work. You put it in the water and you just watch where the bob burr settles, and that's going to tell you what your reading is. So always calibrated, always ready to roll. Now the only downfall is you need some water depth, like there's a good foot and a bit worth of water. So you can't really do it in a small container, right? You need to do it in your tank, and you also need to turn the pumps off because blowing around and bobbing around, you're not going to get an accurate reading. But super cool device that you can always use to double check your other gear. Now some other funky ones. It is also very useful to have a microscope. This is a Celestron 5 megapixel just USB one. So I use this one for years, still works very well. Recently I also got a big kind of like home use, not lab grade, but a bigger one from Amscope for microscope. And if you're trying to do something like ID dinos or view very close up little creatures on there and ID stuff, super duper useful. At the very least, the USB one can become very handy in the hobby. Electronic squeegee, so super duper cool. I actually got this tip from Jake from Reef Builders because he has a bazillion tanks he cleans on a regular basis. So this guy, I have RODI water in there, so you just walk up to the tank, get a little scrub, and then this is a battery operated squeegee. So it sucks out the water, so there is no drips as you go, and it gives you pristine, crystal clear glass, no chemicals, no sprays, anything you're worried about getting into the tank. So super duper cool, and this works extremely well. You can see I got like a massive mirror over there, and I use it on there too, and it cleans it perfectly, like better than I can get it with a spray cleaner paper towel. So super duper cool, and that definitely speeds it up, especially if you have a lot of glass to clean. Alright guys, hopefully you enjoyed this. If you did, hit that like button. If you have any tips or cool tools of your own, let me know in the comments below. I'm sure there's lots of cool stuff I have not discovered yet, so share the knowledge. And if you guys are new, make sure you subscribe. I'll catch you guys on the next update.